On Freedom, it's our time with a roundup of the day's top news. My name is Mikhail Baranov, and I'll tell you the main stories at this hour. Hello? A woman and her 11-year-old daughter were killed as a result of a Russian airstrike on Slovyansk. That's in the Donetsk region. At least 16 more people have been injured. Among the wounded is a 7-year-old girl. According to the national police, the number of injured is still being clarified. Preliminary reports say that Russian forces struck the city with guided aerial bombs. One private house was completely destroyed, and the bodies of the victims were pulled from the rubble. Another 14 private houses were damaged, along with 2 apartment buildings, administrative buildings, warehouses, and hangars, as well as an infrastructure facility, a store, a car service station, and a gas station. Local residents shared details about the shelling.
My door was blown out. The windows are intact, but the door was blown out. The gate was either broken or frozen there. So basically, how many strikes were there?
Oh, there were a lot, right?
I counted 5 or 6. I was sitting in the shed, in the cabin.
Last night, Russian occupiers also shelled the Zaporizhzhia region. 4 people were injured. Among them was a 1-year-old child. According to Ivan Fedorov, the head of the regional military administration, residential buildings and infrastructure facilities were damaged. Almost 6,000 subscribers in the Zaporizhzhia district were left without electricity. 4 people were injured in Sumy and RAZES. 2 of them are children. According to the National Police of Ukraine, the Russian occupation army shelled 21 settlements in the region. Residential buildings, administrative buildings, and railway infrastructure facilities were damaged. 6 people were injured as a result of Russian shelling in Kharkiv in the region. Among the injured are 3 children, aged 6 and 3. Russian forces actively used various types of drones, including Shaheds. Civilian infrastructure facilities were damaged and destroyed. A Russian strike also caused fuel pumps at one of the gas stations to catch fire. Rescuers quickly extinguished the fire. 1 person was injured. 5 people were wounded as a result of shelling in the Kherson region. Among the injured is a 14-year-old teenager. According to the Ministry of Internal Affairs of Ukraine, the OCCU, the occupiers shelled residential neighborhoods on the right bank of Kherson using artillery, mortars, and also attacked with various types of drones. In total, on the night leading into Tuesday, the Russian Federation's army launched 125 strike UAVs at Ukraine. These included Shahed, Gerbera, Tolmas, and other types of drones. Air defense forces neutralized 110 enemy drones. Strikes were recorded at 6 locations, and debris fell at 2 more. The General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine recorded 168 combat engagements along the entire front line over the past day. The Russians were most active in attacking in the Pokrovsk direction. There, the Ukrainian armed forces repelled 38 Russian assaults. More than 20 attacks were also repelled on the Huliet Pole bridgehead, 12 each in the Slovyansk and Kostyantynivka directions, and 5 in the southern Slovyjanski sector. According to military experts, the most active sections of the front are the areas around Pokrovsk, Myrnograd, and the Huliet direction.
The enemy is trying to provoke those very strike bridgeheads from which, during the spring and summer offensive campaign, they will attempt to attack our urban agglomeration in Donetsk region, which includes Slovyansk, Kramatorsk, Drushkivka, and Kostyantynivka. And, in principle, the dynamics of the enemy's actions on the battlefield under current conditions are absolutely telling. The enemy does not dare to actively deploy their armored component on the battlefield. Well, it's obvious why, because any piece of armored equipment on very quickly burns up as a result of attacks by Ukrainian drones, including FPV drones.
On the northern outskirts of Pokrovsk and on the approaches to Grishino, the operational situation remains difficult. According to the 7th Rapid Response Corps of the Ukrainian Air Assault Forces, the enemy is trying to use infantry assault groups supported by unmanned systems. Clashes continue in certain areas of the northern part of the city. The Sychislav paratroopers are destroying all detected vehicles and personnel of the occupying army.
As they mass in the northwestern part of Pokrovsk, the enemy is increasingly sending its infantry toward Grishino. In particular, they're attempting to storm the settlement from the east, north, and south, operating in small groups. And as they try to slip between the positions of the Ukrainian Defense Forces, we are systematically destroying the logistics of the Russian army, both on the approaches to Pokrovsk and in the city center. From a report by the 7th Rapid Response Corps of the Air Assault Forces of the Ukrainian Armed Forces on Telegram,
Ukrainian Defense Forces eliminated 980 Russian occupiers over the past day. Thus, according to the General Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, the total combat losses of the Russian army since the start of the full-scale invasion have exceeded 1,248,000 soldiers. In addition, yesterday, 2 Russian tanks, 5 armored combat vehicles, more than 30 artillery systems, 2 air defense systems, and nearly 1,200 operational tactical level drones were destroyed, and more than 180 units of enemy motor vehicles and special equipment. Ukraine's defense forces struck a repair unit, a UAV training center, command posts, and enemy concentration points. This information was confirmed by the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine.
On the night of February 10, 2026, a repair unit of the Russian army was hit in the area of the settlement of Yalta, Donetsk region, and near Fedorivka, a field fuel depot. In the area of the settlement of KABs, Zaporizhzhia region, a Russian UAV pilot training center and FPV drone production facility was blown up. In the Kharkiv area, Ukrainian soldiers struck at concentrations of enemy personnel, near the settlement of Viskovo, a UAV command post of the Rubicon Center unit and personnel was hit. In addition, in Russia's Kursk region, near the settlement of Tetkino, a strike was recorded on a Russian UAV command post. From a report by the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine on Facebook.
Russia is unable to gain the upper hand on the battlefield, so it attacks Ukraine's energy infrastructure to provoke a humanitarian catastrophe. This was stated today by Commissioner for Enlargement, Marchikos, during a speech at the European Parliament. She emphasized that Europe has always understood that energy is not just about power lines and substations, it's a matter of security and survival.
These are not accidents of war, nor are they collateral damage. These are systematic, deliberate strikes aimed at plunging civilians into darkness and cold. Russia cannot win on the battlefield, so it is using winter as a weapon. It is trying to provoke a humanitarian catastrophe. Hospitals, water supply systems, heating networks, homes, all of these are targets. The cruelty is calculated. The goal is simple, to break the resilience of the Ukrainian people, but Russia has failed to achieve this goal, and it will continue to fail because Ukraine is not alone. Europe supports Ukraine, and Europe will increase the pressure on Russia.
A loan to Ukraine of 90 billion euros. On Wednesday, the European Parliament plans to vote on providing Kyiv with funding for military expenses. This was announced by the President of the European Parliament, Roberta Metsola. Previously, the vote was scheduled for February 24th, the 4th anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. But it was moved to an earlier date because an agreement was reached among the political groups of the European Parliament. This will allow the European Commission to raise money on international markets under the guarantee of the EU's long-term budget. The Prime Minister of Moldova, Alexandru Montano, arrived in Kyiv as part of his first official visit after taking office. The head of government confirmed that he came for talks with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and Prime Minister Yulia Sviridenko. The visit's program includes discussions on bilateral cooperation, maintaining security in the region and coordinating efforts in the context of both countries' aspirations for European integration. Pickups, SUVs, and cargo vans. 12 vehicles were handed over to the Ukrainian Defense Forces, Latvian volunteers and Lukst. Servicemen from various units came directly from the front lines to pick up the vehicles as soon as possible and put them to use. Details at our report.
Andris Golbis is showing off a vehicle that has just arrived for his unit. A 73-year-old Latvian, a serviceman of the 118th Territorial Defense Brigade.
I got all the optics from the guys. I got this vehicle from the guys to help defend the skies. We asked for a vehicle like this for a mobile group, and that's exactly what we got. We'll install a turret, a machine gun, and get to work.
He says it's nice to receive ongoing support from volunteers from his home country. Andris has been living in Ukraine for 40 years. His wife is here, and his children were born here too. They also defend their homeland on the front lines.
My daughter's a machine gunner and combat medic in the territorial defense. My younger son is in the 110th Reconnaissance Company, and I mainly focus on training the guys. Because I have experience and something to teach. My son-in-law was killed. He was in special ops. He's been gone 2 years.
Dmytro Bezverbny, a fighter, is also picking up a vehicle for his unit. He serves in the 5th Separate Assault Brigade. He joined them as a volunteer 3 years ago. Right now, Dmytro is on leave, and when he returns to the front, he'll bring new equipment for his brothers in arms.
The 5th Assault Brigade is present in most of the hotspots, especially in the east. That's the Donetsk region. They have carried out and continue to carry out missions there. But lately, it's not just the Donetsk region, but also the Dnipropetrovsk and Zaporizhzhia regions. It's hard to say exactly where this vehicle will go for now. The enemy hunts vehicles because soldiers use them for missions. It might seem like it's just about the drivers. The driver drops people at their positions, and that's it. But it's also a very risky job, because they're being hunted too.
Latvian volunteers have been helping Ukrainian defenders since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion. Many of them have been doing so since 2014. In just the past 2 years, they've delivered more than 200 vehicles and pieces of special equipment to the front lines. This time, they brought 12 vehicles for the military, along with 50 generators and charging stations worth 100,000 euros.
We're always closely monitoring the situation, just like you. We maintain constant communication with our partners and the military, and we strive to provide assistance as much as we possibly can. This ensures that what we provide is actually useful, so that Latvia as a country can be a source of meaningful and significant support to you.
The vehicles and generators for the military were purchased by Ukrainian benefactors and Latvians. For several years now, all of this has been delivered through the Union of Forest Warriors of Ukraine. 2,500 forestry workers are currently defending Ukraine with weapons in various units. That's why part of the aid goes to meet their needs as well. Pavel Milichuk for Freedom TV Channel.
Ukrainian skeleton racer Vladislav Haraskevich has been allowed to compete at the 2026 Winter Olympic Games wearing a black armband. This is in memory of the Ukrainian athletes who were killed by Russia during the full-scale war. The armband was suggested as an alternative to a helmet featuring portraits of the athletes. Haraskevich wore it during training, but the International Olympic Committee banned the Ukrainian from wearing such commemorative gear during competitions, citing that it does not comply with the Olympic Charter's principles of neutrality in equipment and uniforms.
We tried to approach his wishes with compassion and understanding. He expressed his opinion on social media and during training sessions. As you know, we will not prevent Haraskevich from expressing himself at press conferences after competitions or elsewhere. We believe this is a good compromise in this situation. We should focus on the athlete's results and the sport on the field of play. And it is fundamentally important that all athletes have equal rights, and that the games are separated not only from political and religious matters, but from all forms of interference. Let's call it interference, so that all athletes can focus on their results.
I would like to note that Vladislav Haraskevich fought for the right to compete wearing a helmet with portraits of fallen Ukrainian athletes. He also submitted an official request to the International Olympic Committee. A similar appeal was also sent by the National Olympic Committee of Ukraine. They emphasized that the helmet fully complies with safety requirements and IOC rules. It does not contain any advertising, political slogans, or discriminatory elements. It was confirmed as meeting the established standards during official training sessions.
Dmytro Sharpada. We competed together on the same team at the Youth Olympic Games in Lillehammer. He was a figure skater, and among them was a guy from boxing. Here he is, Maxim Halanichev. He was a medalist at the Youth Olympic Games. Also, Yevhen Malishev, a biathlete, as you can see. He was only 19 when he died. Today, they are with me at the Olympic Games. I want to show the world the tremendous sacrifices being made in Ukraine right now, and to remind the world that war is terrible. Support Ukraine in this terrible situation.
The president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, responded to the situation. He thanked the entire Ukrainian team and personally Vladislav Haraskevich because they remind the world of the price Ukraine is paying in the struggle.
This, in fact, can't be considered inconvenient, inappropriate, or called a political act at a sporting event. It is a reminder to the whole world of what modern Russia is. And this is exactly what reminds everyone of the global role of sports and the historical mission of the Olympic movement as such. All of this is about peace and for the sake of life. Ukraine remains true to this. Russia proves the opposite. Volodymyr Zelensky, President of Ukraine, on Telegram.